This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. President Trump is on a final big campaign blitz before the midterm election, now just 4 days away. At a rally in Missouri Thursday night, he once again called for an end to birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants. Gary Lane has more.
It was President Trump's second campaign stop in Missouri Thursday, where he blasted incumbent Senator Claire McCaskill and the Democrats.
The Democrat agenda is the agenda of the extreme far left. They've gone crazy, folks. They've gone totally loco. In just 5 days, the people of Missouri are going to retire far left Democrat Claire McCaskill. Who's been saying such nice things about me. But you know what? She'll never vote with me. That's the problem.
McCaskill is hoping she'll be reelected to a third term, this time against Republican Josh Hawley. The latest Fox News poll shows the Missouri Attorney General and McCaskill in a dead heat, with each receiving 43% of voter support. McCaskill opposed the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh for the U.S. Supreme Court. Republicans are hoping that vote, along with the president's appearance in the Show Me State, will lead Hawley to an upset victory. Immigration policy dominated the president's Missouri campaign speech. Mr. Trump said Democrats want to give birthright citizenship to every child born of an illegal immigrant.
Hundreds of thousands of children born to illegal immigrants are made automatic citizens of the United States every year because of this crazy lunatic policy that we can end. The
president says even Democrat former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid once opposed birthright citizenship. And during a campaign stop in Florida Wednesday, Trump insisted it is not unconstitutional for him to end the practice through an executive order.
Congress has never passed a law requiring birthright citizenship for illegal aliens, and the Constitution does not, I say that to the media, does not require it. Read it. Because illegal aliens are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
The president talked of securing the border and urged Americans to vote for a safer country.
Republicans want strong borders, no crime, no chaos, and no caravans.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
As that migrant caravan continues to plod across Mexico, some experts predict they may make it to our southern border sooner rather than later. To prepare for their arrival, the Defense Department has been stepping up deployment of troops to the border region. Chuck Holton has that story.
As the Trump administration has seen its efforts to stop illegal border crossings stymied by federal judges over and over again, those who want to come to America have been paying attention. Illegal crossings at the U.S. southern border have spiked, and Border Patrol agents have been struggling to keep up. The migrant caravan making its way north may have dwindled somewhat to just over 3,500 Hondurans, but more groups are coming along behind. In a briefing October 29th, CBP Commissioner Kevin McAleenan put it in perspective.
We are already facing a border security and humanitarian crisis at our southwest border. Each day, on average, for the last 3 weeks, CBP has encountered a combination of almost 1,900 persons apprehended crossing our border illegally or presenting without documents at ports of entry. They're incentivized to try to cross by the expectation that they will be allowed to stay. This means that at any given moment, there are tens of thousands of intending migrants between the Guatemala border and the U.S. border moving towards us at any given time. Within that flow, and included, are about 17,000 criminals last year, along with hardened smugglers and people from over 100 countries around the world.
Last year, more than 38,000 migrants who came looking for asylum were found not to meet the requirements and were refused. To deal with this burgeoning crisis, Border Patrol is bringing in every resource at its disposal, from extra agents to helicopters to special operations and medical teams. Add that to the U.S. troops who are moving in from around the country to provide logistical and engineering support, and there will soon be more assets guarding our southern frontier than we have currently in Afghanistan or Iraq. But even that might not be enough. This man traveling with the caravan says they are coming in no matter what.
Vamos decidido que si los toca morir, vamos a morir todos en grupo, así como estamos, a caer todos si los toca morir. Juntos. La decisión, salimos juntos y juntos los vamos a morir todos si los toca.
But if this group plans on repeating the performance they made on the Guatemala-Mexico border, these soldiers from Fort Carson, Colorado, are going to have something to say about it.
As a combat engineer, we are very highly trained in obstacles, which is very useful right now. It's just another way to support my country and do what needs to be done.
Northcom Commanding General Terrence O'Shaughnessy agrees.
I think the president has made it clear that border security is national security. That is the direction we've given. That's the direction that we're marching to. Our orders are very clear. We are engaged. We're here to support CBP, and we're going to secure the border.
The new border wall going up very slowly in California is likely not to see significant progress unless Republicans hold the House in next week's elections. But in the meantime, these troops are being sent to fill in the gaps and form a human wall that will help border agents better handle the crisis along our 2,000-mile southern frontier. For CBN News, I'm Chuck Holton.
Immigration is one of the big issues driving people to the polls for the midterm elections. Our political analyst, John Waggy, joins us now with more. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for your insights. Well, first of all, how are things looking like right now across the country?
Well, you just mentioned immigration, and of course, Chuck had that story about it, and it's clear that President Trump has made immigration the story of this last campaign push rally that he has across the country. The Democrats, meanwhile, have made health care their issue and fears about especially people with pre-existing conditions. So it's those two issues clashing. It's real reminiscent to me, Mark, even though it was a presidential contest 2 years ago, it feels like 2016 all over again, where you have all these polls for Senate races this time that are neck and neck, some cases a tie like the one Gary mentioned in Missouri. And at the same time, that we don't know what people are telling the pollsters or whether the people who are telling their pollsters they're going to vote are really going to come on Election Day. And of course, a lot of people have already early voted, and across several key states, Republicans have an edge in the actual ballots cast, whereas in two years ago, the Democrats had an edge in that. So, but that can be something that throws you off. Whatever it is, it's very much a Donnybrook, and I don't think that the election results, no matter how they come down on Tuesday, are going to be the end of the debate. It's a real war over Washington right now.
Now, people have talked about a blue wave, and then I guess there's been at least one prophecy saying that there's going to be a red tsunami. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, several intercessors have talked about a red tsunami coming, and we'll see in a few days if it's true or not. The media people at this time are saying the exact opposite. They're saying that in the House there will be a blue wave that Democrats could win up to 40 seats, which would give them solid control of the House of Representatives. Others are saying, wait a minute, that's too far out. These polls don't indicate that big a massacre, and the Republicans have a chance to take it, keep a control of the House. But it's not going to be easy. The Senate is another matter. The Republicans look like they're going to even add to their Senate majority. And so you would have, if that were to be the case, a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, you would have a divided government, and there'd be 2 more years of gridlock and probably chaos. That's what would happen if the pollsters are right. But I'm not sure the pollsters are right. I think that there could be this red wave still materialize over the last 4 to 5 days before people cast their last ballots. So we'll see.
Yes, we will. All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mark.
And insights. All right, well, here's a look at some of the other major stories we're following in the CBN newsroom today. Brazil's newly elected president says he will move Brazil's embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Jair Bolsonaro posted on Facebook on Thursday he will follow through on a campaign promise regarding the embassy after he takes office. President Trump tweeted Monday that he and Bolsonaro had good conversation and said they will work closely together on everything. The United States imposed new sanctions Thursday on Venezuela and Cuba. In a speech in Miami, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton condemned what he called the destructive forces of oppression, socialism, and totalitarianism, and he said those countries represent. He said the U.S. will no longer appease dictators and despots on our shores in this hemisphere. or near our shores. Bolton also promised additional penalties against Nicaragua to condemn the Ortega regime's violence. A new study says African Americans engage the most with the Bible than any other U.S. ethnic group. According to the latest State of the Bible survey by American Bible Society, 37% choose the Bible over coffee and 60% use the Bible every day. 50% say they feel more connected to God when they read their Bible, and 75% say they feel the need to know God better when reading the Bible. And you can find these and other stories at cbnnews.com. Well, coming up, anti-Semitism in America. We're going to show you how the hatred of Jews is spreading on college campuses. Today is the last of a series of funerals for the victims of Pittsburgh's synagogue shooting. 97-year-old Rose Mallinger was the oldest victim of the massacre, and she will be laid to rest today. Mallinger had attended Tree of Life Synagogue for more than 60 years. Her family says it was the center of her very active life. Mallinger's daughter was also wounded in the attack. Shooting suspect Robert Bowers has pleaded not guilty to federal charges that could result in a death sentence. He remains jailed. In the wake of the Pittsburgh synagogue mass murder, Americans have realized anti-Semitism is on the rise. But what's surprising is how much of it's happening on America's college campuses. Paul Strand reports.
Some folks hear about anti-Semitism here in America and they tend to blame people on the right, but often it's coming from the left, and sometimes right here on college campuses.
The truth is that anti-Semitism has been on the rise across the board. The Anti-Defamation League talks about how there's been an uptick, I think it's 57% increase, but on the university campuses, just in the last year alone, is over 80%.
For example, UCLA is taking heat for hosting the Students for Justice in Palestine annual conference. As philanthropist Adam Milstein pointed out in a tweet, its members use words like, "Let's stuff some Jews in the oven," "Kill all the Jews," "Don't hesitate to slash their throats." Eliza Lewin of the Brandeis Center speaks of Jewish students afraid to wear shirts showing Hebrew.
Because when they wear Hebrew t-shirts, they feel that it makes them a target.
Being accosted by other students and calling them Zionist baby killers and that sort of thing.
Professor David Bernstein at George Mason University's law school writes about anti-Semitism. Some of it comes from Middle Eastern Muslim students now studying here.
Anti-Semitism is common and unobjectionable in the Middle East. Rates of anti-Semitism in Syria, the Palestinian territories, Jordan, Egypt are 80% plus.
And the Jews get judged for their defense of the Jewish homeland, Israel.
If you demonize Israel, if you think that Israel is so awful that it should be the one country singled out for sanctions and boycotts and all that, then you say to yourself, well, who's defending this evil country? And not surprisingly, the people who are most active in defending Israel on many campuses are Jews, so there must be something wrong with the Jews.
Lewin says people on campus who say they're just anti-Zionist, not anti-Jew, don't understand how crucial Zion is to most Jews.
The special feeling about Zion, about Israel, is an integral part of Jewish identity. It is there's a deep spiritual, religious connection to Israel that predates the creation of the modern state of Israel.
Some folks dream that things like racism and anti-Semitism may just fade away as civilization progresses. But if it's starting to bubble up on college campuses and among the young, maybe it's a dream that has to be put off for a while. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the George Mason Law School.
Still ahead, Burn the Ships, where we hear the story behind For King and Country's new music. Welcome back. For King and Country's latest project is called Burn the Ships. Ephraim Graham sat down with the Smallbone Brothers for a Studio 5 sit-down.
And if you need a refuge, I will be right here until the end. Oh, it's time to burn the ships, cut the ties, send a flare into the night. Say a prayer, turn the tide, dry your tears and wave goodbye.
The new project, Burn the Ships. What does that mean?
My wife and I have got 3 kids, and when she was pregnant with our middle son, Phoenix, she was having a bunch of morning sickness, a bunch of nausea, and so she went to the doctor and they said, hey, we can help you with that. Here's some medicine to eliminate the nausea. And for about 6 weeks it worked, and then she went back and said, hey, it's not working anymore, and they gave her more medicine and upped the dosage. And I was in Austin, Texas with a show that night, and she calls me and she says, hey, I need you to come home. And she says, I've been taking this medicine and I just can't stop. And so they prescribed her outpatient therapy for about 2 weeks, and so I'd drop her off at 9 a.m. in the morning, pick her up at 2, and she'd shown so much improvement in 2 weeks. They said, hey, you're free to go, and you've done tremendously well. And soon after that, she had that bottle of pills at home. And she said, Luke, I need to go and take these pills. I need to go and just flush them, because these pills represent so much guilt and so much shame in my life. And I remembered a story many years ago about an explorer who was going to a new land, and when he arrived to explore this land, to explore the horizon in all of these ships, he realized that the men didn't want to follow him because they wanted to stay even in the dirty confines of these boats just because it was comfortable, not because it was good. And easy, right? And so soon after that, he calls them back onto the shoreline again. He said, I want every soldier on the shoreline. And once he got all of his soldiers on the shoreline, he gave the command, hey, burn the ships, because we're not retreating. We're moving into a new day. We're going to go explore a new world. And I think when my wife flushed those pills, that was her, burning the ships.
I love that.
Yeah.
Move forward, push past the past.
Exactly.
That song wasn't even written in theory for this project. It was written 2.5 years ago. And our wives have really been, both Courtney and my wife Mariah, have really been laced into this project. On the creative side, the last song on the record, we sing with them, even down to the fact that, Courtney really came to Luke and said, hey, I want you to share this story. Like, this is, if God can kind of take me from this place of addiction and so radically shift my story, I want you to share that with people.
I love pretty much every single song on the album, but one that stands out for me is when you're singing God Only Knows.
We were always taken with that phrase, God only knows, because it's such a flippant, at face value, people say, oh, God only knows.
Yeah, it's a throwaway.
It's a throwaway. And yet, if this is all true, that there is this creator and this designer, and he intervened into humanity 2,000 years ago, and that there is redemption, and he knows the hairs on our head, and yet he still has this superhero kind of love for us. That's radical. Mm-hmm. When we're coming up with the music video concept, was the same week that Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade had passed away. And it kind of rocked us all, as I know it did America. And so we kind of built the concept of the music video around suicide prevention. And man, I got to tell you, everyone, as we've dug into this, it's an epidemic. I mean, it's the second biggest killer of those our age. We were at college a couple of weeks ago, and I just kind of, I'd not done it before, but I asked the audience, hey, how many of you directly or indirectly been impacted by suicide? And probably 80% of the kids. You're starting to see it all over the place. It's starting to become common. And I think there's a real conversation to be had about, statistically in the 80s, 20% of Americans said they were lonely. Now in 2018, almost 50%. And yet in that 38-year span, through smart devices and technology and the internet, we've become more connected than we ever have in history. But it seems like we're doing so much of it here. And it needs to be done here, and it needs to be done here. And so that's part of the song and the record's theme, is to sort of provoke some of those questions in ourselves, first and foremost, and in others.
Great job. Thank you guys both so much. Pleasure. Thank you for the new project. I look forward to what's next.
As do we.
Thank you, Ephraim, and thanks to the guys for King and Country. Some great music and some powerful messages behind those songs. Back in a moment with more of CBN NewsWatch. The weekend is here, and if your plans include heading to the theater, our friends at Plugged In Online bring us a family-friendly review of the film Nutcracker and the Four Realms.
The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, a young girl named Clara receives a special Christmas gift left to her by her mom, who has recently passed away. The only problem is the gift is locked tight with no key to be found.
Merry Christmas, Clara.
Godfather. Clara's godfather sends her off on a quest for the key, which leads her into a magical world of four realms.
Remember, Clara, nothing is as it seems.
Where am I?
You're in the Four Realms, Princess Clara.
It's a kingdom of snowflakes, flowers, sweets, mechanical amusements, and animated toys. But it's also a world that's at war with itself. There, the young girl learns two amazing truths. For one thing, she learns that her mother somehow brought to life everything in this magical place using one of her inventions. And secondly, it's said that only Clara can find a way to overcome a certain Mother Ginger and her army of mice to unlock peace in the realms. Largely based on the 1860 short story, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, this Disney live-action pic is filled with magic and wonder, and it unwraps great messages about working through grief and gaining self-confidence. There are some lightly creepy characters in the Enchanted mix, and some Wizard of Oz-like peril. But for those who don't mind a few tin soldier battles, I'll give The Nutcracker and the Four Realms a festive 4.5 winter wonderlands out of 5 for family friendliness. For the full review, check out our website, pluggedin.com. Plugging you into the movies, I'm Cheryl Wilhelmy for Focus on the Family's Plugged In Movie Review.
And you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at CBNnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here, and you can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope to join us next time. Have a great day.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for this second half hour of CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. President Trump is on one final campaign blitz before Election Day, now just 4 days away. In Missouri Thursday, he blasted incumbent Senator Claire McCaskill and the Democrats, but immigration and birthright citizenship dominated his speech.
Hundreds of thousands of children born to illegal immigrants are made automatic citizens of the United States every year because of this crazy, lunatic policy that we can end, Congress has never passed a law requiring birthright citizenship for illegal aliens, and the Constitution does not, I say that to the media, does not require it. Read it. Because illegal aliens are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
Our Gary Lane is following this story and brings us more. Welcome, Gary.
Glad to be here.
With only 4 days until Election Day, why did President Trump make a second stop in Missouri?
Because Missouri is a key state. If Republicans are to maintain control of the U.S. Senate or even pick up seats, they need Missouri. And right now, Claire McCaskill is neck and neck with Josh Hawley. So I think the president, Mark, felt that he could put this over the top for Hawley by making one more stop in Missouri.
What did he say about Claire McCaskill?
Well, he said Claire McCaskill will say one thing and then do another. And he said, look, she'll say that she likes nice things. She'll say nice things about President Trump, say she likes him and so forth. But then she'll never vote for President Trump. That's what the president said. He also said, look, she is now changing her opinion and her views on the border. But where was she a long time ago? Not too long ago on the border. He thinks she wasn't tough enough.
Well, what else did he say about immigration? We heard a little bit there in the soundbite. What else did he say?
Well, you heard what he said about the citizenship, but on immigration, he said, look, we've got to do something to get control of this border. And he said, we will stop this caravan that is heading from Mexico to the United States. And he's already pledged that maybe as many as 15,000 troops will be sent down there.
Yeah, give us an update on that. Where do things stand right now at the southern border?
Well, look, it's going to be a long time, Mark, before that caravan actually reaches the U.S. border because it's traveling all the way through Mexico. People on foot, maybe riding in small vehicles and so forth. But when it does arrive, he'll have as many as 15,000 U.S. troops from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, also Fort Carson, Colorado. They're already being deployed, going down to be support to the Border Patrol. And, of course, Border Patrol, they're beefing up their staff and their efforts there as well.
All right, Gary Lane, thanks so much for your time and your insights. Here's a look now at some of the other major stories we're following in the CBN newsroom today. The migrant caravan is continuing its trek across Mexico, and while experts believe it may make its way to our southern border sooner rather than later, Border Patrol is bringing in all resources to deal with the crisis now. Extra agents, helicopters, special operations, and medical teams are guarding the southern frontier. Meanwhile, soldiers from Fort Carson, Colorado are ready to disrupt any migrants' plans to enter into the U.S. illegally. The United States imposed new sanctions Thursday on Venezuela and Cuba. In a speech in Miami, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton condemned what he called the destructive forces of oppression, socialism, and totalitarianism that he said those countries represent. He said the U.S. will no longer appease dictators and despots near our shores in this hemisphere. Bolton also promised additional penalties against Nicaragua to condemn the Ortega regime's violence. A delegation of U.S. evangelical leaders met with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and other Saudi leaders. The visit follows the controversial death and disappearance of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. The meeting was in the works for months, but it came to pass when the delegation made a visit to the United Arab Emirates. However, there was not a political agenda, but rather a Christian mission. And you can find these and other stories at CBNNews.com. Brazil's newly elected president says he will move Brazil's embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Jair Bolsonaro posted the announcement on Facebook Thursday. He says he will follow through on a campaign promise regarding the embassy after he takes office. President Trump tweeted Monday that he and Bolsonaro had good conversation and said they will work closely together on everything. Trump moved the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem earlier this year. Shortly afterwards, Guatemala moved their embassy to Jerusalem. Coming up, is anti-Semitism on the rise in America? We answer that question and more when we return. Stay with us. A 97-year-old woman who was the oldest victim of the Pittsburgh massacre will be laid to rest today. Rose Mallinger was among 11 victims gunned down in what is being called the deadliest attack on Jews in U.S. history. Mallinger had attended Tree of Life Synagogue for more than 60 years. Her family says it was the center of her very active life. Mallinger's daughter was also wounded in the attack. Today is the last of a series of funerals for the victims of Pittsburgh's synagogue shooting. Meanwhile, shooting suspect Robert Bowers has pleaded not guilty to federal charges that could result in a death sentence. He remains jailed. Two Muslim organizations have raised more than $200,000 to help victims and their families following the shooting massacre at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Tariq El-Masidi started an online fundraiser just 2 hours after hearing about the shooting. The Chicago-based activist initially wanted to raise $2,000, but the campaign spread quickly. The group has raised nearly $230,000. Masidi wrote on Twitter, "Muslims, let's stand with our Jewish cousins against hate, bigotry, and violence." In the wake of the Pittsburgh synagogue mass murder, Americans have realized anti-Semitism is on the rise. But what's surprising is how much of it's happening on America's college campuses. The University of California, Los Angeles is taking heat for hosting its Students for Justice and Palestine annual conference. Philanthropist Adam Milstein points out on Twitter that the group's members use words like, "Let's stuff some Jews in the oven, kill all the Jews, don't hesitate to slash their throats." And according to Milstein, past members have once been members of actual terror organizations. Aliza Lewin of the Brandeis Center says Jewish students on campus are so afraid that they are hiding their identity.
Across the board, the Anti-Defamation League talks about how there's been an uptick, I think it's 57% increase, but on the university campuses, just in the last year alone, it's over 80%.
America was once considered a safe haven for refugees from anti-Semitism, but the Pittsburgh massacre raises a sad and shocking question. Is America no longer safe for Jews? Dale Hurd reports on the global plague that's now showing its ugly face in America.
European Jews once fled to America for safety. That may change. The Anti-Defamation League says the number of anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. rose nearly 60% last year alone. And Saturday's synagogue massacre must have American Jews wondering if it could become too dangerous for them in the U.S. It's been said that when Nazi persecution of the Jews began, the Jews who were pessimists went to New York. The Jews who were optimists went to Auschwitz, meaning that Jews who thought the persecution would stop paid with their lives. One of the lessons of the Holocaust for Jews has been, when persecution begins, don't wait to leave. Alan Hoffman, head of the Jewish Agency, which helps Jews return to Israel, says Jews today are no longer waiting to be attacked. Simply the fear that a nation has become unsafe is enough for them to pick up and leave.
Families say, if this is what the future is going to look like, I don't think that this is what I'd like to see for my children.
Jews who are old enough to have lived through the Holocaust, like Belgian Professor Julian Klenner, are asking, why is this happening to me again?
How comes that the Shoah was not able to quiet down people about Jews? Why didn't that disappear? What have I done to deserve that?
Anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attacks have been a much bigger problem in Europe because of Muslim immigration and because anti-Semitism has now infected the European left. Budapest Rabbi Shlomo Koves told us Jews remain the world's chief scapegoat for blame.
You know, there is a joke in Hungary that somebody comes to a village and he says, is there anti-Semitism here? So they say, no, there isn't, but there's a great need for it.
But why has this happened in America? Dr. Michael Rydelnik, professor of Jewish studies at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, is the son of Holocaust survivors.
Anti-Semitism it's like a contagious disease that's always under the surface, and sometimes it spurs up into epidemic proportions, and then sometimes it recedes.
But Rydelnik says the real source of anti-Semitism is Satan and those who hate God.
They hate the God of Israel, and so therefore they want to hurt him by hurting his people. Those who love the God of Israel need to be the loudest voices in opposing it.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Up next, meet the doctor whose revolutionary program can prevent and reverse the effects of Alzheimer's. Just the word Alzheimer's can be frightening. It steals memories and is America's third leading cause of death. One doctor believes the disease can be successfully fought. Lori Johnson visited one of his patients whose Alzheimer's symptoms actually reversed.
These days, 69-year-old Sally Weinrich smiles almost all the time, ever since her Alzheimer's symptoms reversed.
Life is good. I like being able to remember, to connect the dots, because I've experienced the absence of thinking, and that is scary.
Her husband, Martin, equally overjoyed.
She has come back.
Sally's not alone. Hundreds of patients with mild to moderate cognitive impairment experience never-before-seen improvements thanks to a revolutionary treatment developed by Dr. Dale Bredesen.
Alzheimer's disease is no longer a mystery. You don't have to say, we don't know why you get it, we don't know what to do about it. We do know why you get it, we do know what to do about it, and we know how to prevent it.
After 30 years of research, Dr. Bredesen is sharing his treatment in the new book, The End of Alzheimer's, as well as in medical journals. Just like a roof with 36 holes can only work when all 36 are repaired, Dr. Bredesen says there are 36 causes of Alzheimer's, which must all be addressed.
If there are specific exposures, you want to get rid of those. If there are specific nutritional changes, you want to address those. If there are hormonal changes, you want to address those. If there are inflammatory changes.
Sally and Martin sensed trouble when she began forgetting things, like her grandchildren's names and her purse at the grocery. A test confirmed early stages of Alzheimer's.
It was a total sense of hopelessness. A wish to die and not want to live, because as a nurse, I've cared for Alzheimer's patients, and I also have had family members who I love dearly who've had advanced Alzheimer's and who died from Alzheimer's, in fact.
So, of course, I was scared.
Martin, a scientific researcher, scoured the internet for help. He found Dr. Bredesen's protocol and got Sally on board.
You don't want to wait until it's very late in the game. The earlier the better, and the more likely you're going to see dramatic improvements.
Sally got what Dr. Bredesen calls a cognoscopy, blood work, genetic tests, and more to identify where she was when it came to Alzheimer's 36 causes.
All of us should have a cognoscopy when we get to 45 or more, just as we get a colonoscopy when we're 50. Everybody knows that.
Sally's results pinpointed specific areas of concern.
Each person's program is different, so we developed a computerized algorithm so that you can look at all the different contributors for each person, identify.
The next step for Sally, tailor-made treatment that zeroes in on where she needs improvement. In her case, that meant certain medicines, vitamins, and supplements, more sleep, less stress.
And the first thing I started doing was spending, because Dr. Bredesen talks about decreasing stress, was spending 30 minutes each morning praying. I immediately saw improvement in what I could recall. Next thing I did was increase my exercise. I immediately saw improvement in my thinking.
Sally eats a mildly ketogenic diet as part of her treatment. That means no sugar and very few other carbohydrates.
When I am ketogenic, my brain thinks clearer than when I'm not ketogenic.
Sally eliminated exposure to certain toxins like mold and pesticides, addressed hidden infections in her body, and much more.
I have not gone to town and forgotten my pocketbook since I've started this program. Hallelujah, because I need my credit card.
It takes typically 3 to 6 months, but we see unprecedented improvements in their scores, in their ability to go back to work, interact with their families, increases in their hippocampal volumes, things like that.
When it comes to sustainability, Dr. Bredesen says people who have been on the program for 5 years now are still mentally fit. So while genetics mean an estimated 75 million Americans are predisposed to Alzheimer's, like Sally Weinrich, Dr. Dale Bredesen says they no longer have to fear being tested, because now there's something they can do about it.
The fear is pretty much gone. The doubt is pretty much gone. And that's the real Sally. That's who God and Dale Bredesen have given back to me.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Welcome back. A new study says African Americans engage the most with the Bible than any other U.S. ethnic group. According to the latest State of the Bible survey by American Bible Society, 37% choose the Bible over coffee and 60% use the Bible every day. 50% say they feel more connected to God when they read their Bible, and 75% say they feel the need to know God better when reading the Bible. This weekend, the Nutcracker and the Four Realms hits theaters. Ephraim Graham has more on how the film is making history.
She's the first African-American female principal dancer with the prestigious American Ballet Theater. And now, Misty Copeland has a leading role in Disney's new film, The Nutcracker.
I never imagined I would be a part of a film of this magnitude. It's really just a dream come true. The Nutcracker is such a big part of my art form.
It's in theaters nationwide, November 2nd.
Hi, I'm Misty Copeland, and I play the ballerina princess in Disney's The Nutcracker and the Four Realms.
Good for her. Congratulations. Well, it's Friday, which means the weekend is right around the corner, and we want to leave you with an inspiring story. A group of Christian women and men who formerly identified as LGBT are taking to the streets of LA to proclaim their newfound freedom in Jesus. Talia Weiss has more.
The message of the good news will be shouted from the rooftops by former transgender, lesbian, and gay individuals. People who have left the LGBTQ lifestyle and turned to Jesus are taking part in a freedom march in Los Angeles this weekend.
Praises will be heard and testimonies will be shared at this event. And the hope, more people will come to Jesus and be completely transformed. Jeffrey McCall is the founder of this movement. He says this march is not about suppressing anyone, but finding freedom in Christ.
I really want to send a message to the LGBTQ community that there's hope. Hey, we were in the same lifestyles you were in, y'all, and we came out of that and followed Christ, and there's a whole nother life, a life that we didn't even know was possible, a life of joy and peace and freedom. We want to reach back out to them and let them know there is another way.
McCall, diagnosed with gender dysphoria by a psychiatrist, used to live as a transgender woman until he says God's love transformed his life.
I just spoke out to God. I don't even know really where it came from, but my inner spirit. And I said, will I ever live for you? I just wanted to know, will I ever live for you or not? I'm so far away from whoever I think that you could be. And he spoke to me. All my thoughts in my mind went silent. And I heard him say, yes, you will live for me. And when he said that, I was just shocked and stunned. I couldn't believe that the God I always heard about was actually speaking to me.
McCall says that's when everything changed. Louise Ruiz and Angel Colon have similar stories. They're survivors of the 2016 Deadly Pulse gay nightclub shooting in Orlando, where 49 people were killed. Colon was shot 6 times and survived. And Ruiz says he was nearly trampled to death as people fled to safety.
Just watching the news while I was on a hospital bed full of pain and everything, seeing the names going by, and God started working in my heart, I could have been number 50, but, now I'm alive, and I'm telling I have a chance to share my story with the world and share that Jesus can change anyone.
Ruiz and Colon are now part of the team planning the upcoming Freedom March in LA and a march in Orlando in 2019.
We're a group of overcomers that used to be in the LGBTQ, and now we're just sharing our story with the world.
It's a story of hope and redemption, and the leaders want to connect fellow overcomers, reach out to the LGBTQ community, and equip the local church.
There is a group that is, and I believe a massive group coming out of this community, so the church has to be ready to love them, bring them in, and help disciple them and grow them.
If you'd like to learn more information about the marches, go to cbnnews.com. Well, that's CBN Good News. I'm Talia Wise. Until next time, make time to spread a little bit of good news.
What an amazing story. Well, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day and weekend.